Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Email on Tap. I'm your host, Anthony Chuli, and today we've got a very special guest, Kyle Cook. He is a singer-songwriter, solo artist, and member of Matchbox 20. Kyle, thanks so much for being on the program.
Of course, man.
How are you?
Good, doing good.
So tell me a little bit about yourself for those of us who may not be familiar with you and your background, a little bit about your career, what you're working on currently.
Well, I currently live in Nashville. Been there for about 13 years. And man, that's been a great move for me. So when Matchbox got together, that was kind of in the Southeast. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I went to school in Atlanta. That's how I kind of met a producer named Matt Serletic that kind of introduced me to Rob, Paul, and Brian, which was kind of they were the three-piece that I joined along with another guitar player from Florida that then became Matchbox 20. So lived in Orlando for a little bit. We got a record deal. At that time, that's when we changed the name to Matchbox 20, and things were just kind of off and running from there. And I just got kind of, the band, blew up beyond, anybody's expectations. And then everybody kind of moved all over the country. Once we got a little bit of money, a little bit of success under our belt, everybody started families and, and as we do now, all live in different cities. Hung around in Florida for a little bit and then, really just felt like there was something, I was missing that artistic musical community. And that's what kind of brought me to Nashville, Tennessee, because I grew up in Indiana. So it was a little bit better bet, a little bit more convenient for me to kind of have my kids be close to my parents. And it was kind of between LA and Nashville. And started a studio that has been running there for the last decade or so, and I just love it there, man. It's great. The songwriting community's wonderful. It's got some of the best studios in the world, musicians, and it's centrally located. So that's kind of where I've been hunkering down for the last 13 years. And then just recently, last fall, put out my first solo record.
Nice.
I don't know what was, it was kind of like, a couple of decades went by and I dabbled in different production projects and other bands, solo bands, but I was just like, I don't know what's preventing me from just kind of making a record that's my sound. So put out a record called Wolves in October of last year and just finished a tour of the West Coast and now about halfway done with my sophomore effort. Nice. So Untitled yet. So hoping to get that out, at least a single or something by the end of the year.
Great.
And that's kind of gets us up to speed, I think.
So I'm really interested, for someone who travels and is on the road touring quite a bit, what's your day-to-day interaction with email? How do you use email and how is email a part of your day-to-day life?
Well, it's a big one. Most of the business that I do, whether it's contractual stuff from my agent or management, and really just communicating with band members. I kind of prefer it over text. I would say text is something that, is a little more personal, and that's how I use it. So, mainly that's how I communicate with my kids, my girlfriend, my parents. But yeah, just about everything else, things that have to do with the house, utilities, any of those things are all done through email,
What about brands and marketing emails? Are there specific brands that you subscribe to or that you enjoy receiving communications from?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. There's quite a few, to be honest, that I've unsubscribed just because, in today's world, you have to kind of like filter it down to something that's manageable.
Right.
Because, after a while, every coffee house in America wants your email before you get your points and everything. So, your inbox gets a little overloaded. So yeah, I've dialed it down to, a handful of brands that are the most relevant. Amazon is a big one. Apple, because of for their streaming service, and iTunes, and a variety of other notifications, new iPhones coming out, laptops, whatever. Wayfair, because I love interior design,
Okay.
and I love furniture, and just the artist in me loves like walking into a space and then having a vibe. So always interested to see what Wayfair might have deal wise. There's a couple other, I can't think of the names, but there's a couple other home furnishing spots in like Nashville that I subscribe to, Southeastern Salvage, and a couple of, but related to that same kind of thing, home decor, Zillow, but that's kind of more really relevant to the moment because I'm currently looking for a house. I was renting for a while, and now I'm sort of looking to get back into a mortgage and get some property in Nashville. So yeah, I'm just kind of watching some houses and stuff. So real estate would be one.
Okay. One of the important elements that marketers focus on from a brand side is what we call personalization, and it's essentially trying to make an email unique so it seems like it's unique to you and not a bash and blast where it's the same email for millions of people. I'm interested.
I didn't realize that.
I'm interested to hear about if you have an example or know of a brand that you feel like knows you well, or maybe it's you're traveling and it's a lodging property or an airline that is paying attention to the data and the signals.
There's a couple airlines, that I probably still subscribe to. One that comes to mind is a company called Instacart. So I'm recently divorced and my ex-wife moved to Colorado. So I'm kind of, although my kids are older, one's about to go into her senior year of high school and the other one's in college. I'm kind of single dad, because they still live in Nashville, my kids. And because of what I do and the nature of the traveling and like, hey guys, it's like, my youngest will stay with her aunt and uncle when I go out of town and stuff. So I kind of got into this. So Instacart became something that was like, hey, it's nice to have a service that, if you don't know what that is,
I'm familiar.
Right.
It's grocery delivery.
Grocery delivery. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like they're kind of tailored to, because I like to cook, love to cook. And yeah, I feel like they're kind of tailored a little bit to what it seems like they've learned what I'm interested in buying, either in bulk or, just ingredients that maybe I buy a lot. Like, hey, we got a sale on, almonds or something. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like they tailor. That's one thing that definitely sticks out.
So they're paying attention to what you're buying, your behavior, and learning and tailoring.
Yeah, and there's definitely other ones too, but that one sticks out.
What about on the flip side? What would be, in your opinion, something that frustrates you as a consumer with email, or that is finicky in the way that you interact with email? Is there any challenges or frustrations that you have with that channel?
I mean, when they make it sort of very tough to discern how to unsubscribe, I think sometimes can be frustrating. So sometimes you end up with a lot of stuff in your inbox. I don't necessarily love it when they sort of force you to explain to them why you're unsubscribing before you have the ability to do it. You know what I mean?
That's a very good point.
I understand why they do it, but it sort of just prolongs the process. And I feel like they should, I feel like the companies that are a little more respectful of those kind of things, that make it, give you plenty of, make it very obvious if, how to stop the email newsletter if you don't feel like it's relevant. I feel like those companies that are kind of respectful of the consumer in that way, rather than feeling like they're just hammering you with sales and it just seeming like a complete profit-driven thing. What else? And I think just maybe a heavy load of it. Just
frequency, just too much email.
Yeah. But again, I understand depending on the type of business, if it's if it's continual, if there's continual sales going on, or like, we were speaking of Wayfair. I kind of feel like Wayfair does, even though I enjoy seeing what's going on, they do kind of, it seems like every day I get something. So I feel like if I'm getting something daily, it's starting to wear on me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned frequency and getting too much email, and in fact, it's one of the leading reasons why people unsubscribe from a newsletter or from a brand. It's too much.
Yeah.
Do you ever? You mentioned unsubscribing and the difficulty in finding the unsubscribe link. Do you ever complain or mark emails as spam or report emails or complain about emails other than just simply unsubscribing from them?
Not really. I'm not sure if I even know how to report an email. On the spam situation, I guess there's a little something up there that you can
click
mark
and
it as
mark
spam.
it as, yeah.
Yeah, I don't use that feature very often for some reason. I don't know why. Usually just scan it quickly to see if it's relevant and then delete it, or if I've decided that company is not relevant, then and go through the unsubscribe process. I feel like sometimes the mobile side of things is a lot more of a pain, and that companies could maybe better that.
The responsiveness, or just the way that it.
Well, yeah, like if there's some options in the bottom, whether you're unsubscribing or subscribing, sometimes in the mobile world, it feels like they could tailor it more for the mobile screen, so it's you're not like literally squinting to try to figure out how to, what I mean?
Yeah,
there's all these little buttons that are like that, and you're just like trying to hit it with your fingernail or something.
It's not optimized for a mobile device.
Yeah,
with a small screen.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's always easier on a laptop, but the reality is, everybody's spending more and more time on their actual phones.
Very true.
But that is another relevant thing regarding email. I still do like, and maybe that's part of the reason, I still do like handling most of my email via laptop. It just feels quicker, easier. Part of that might be because I'm a fairly fast typer, but some of those other roadblocks can be a little bit of a pain. So sometimes I feel like I save the bulk of a lot of email work to when I can get to a hotel or kind of get a moment to pull my laptop up. But that would be one reason why, is because the mobile world just seems a little harder to navigate with some companies.
We're going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to do a lightning round with you. So I've got
lightning round, kids.
Fast responses. They can be short responses. 5 questions. Okay. The first one for you is Matchbox 20. What's in the name? How did that name come to fruition for the band?
There's so many different ridiculous stories that we would come up with, and we do like radio interviews and written interviews and different stuff just to try to make it interesting. Really it was as simple as, and I think we all agree that it was the one that we disliked the least. And getting to name a collective of people is a very hard thing to do, right? Because you're trying to identify with some personality that's a collective. So each person kind of has their say. So there was ridiculous names like Big Shoe Spiders and all kinds of other we were almost Wood for a second, WOOD, which would have been really unfortunate. So it's a good thing that we're not Wood. And then so Paul Doucette was, and I wasn't actually there when it occurred, but they were in a bar somewhere. And I feel like this was kind of a phase in the 90s where people were wearing patches on denim was kind of a thing. And he claims that somebody came in with just a bunch of patches all over the thing, and there was a Matchbox, and then they had a 20, and out of frustration he's just well, after nobody can agree on things, it's what about Matchbox 20? How about that? And it's kind of okay.
It's stuck.
That kind of thing. And then it stuck around for a second, and then, it's just, And then again, it was just the one that people weren't arguing about the most. as it being the name. So pretty much it's like, I guess that's our name because no one really hates it. So, so there you go.
It's a cool story.
Yeah. There's probably a sexier story that I could have come up with, but I figured I'd tell you the truth.
What about describing your musical style in 1 or 2 words?
These are tough questions for the lightning round, I'm going to tell you. Fluid. Emotional.
Okay. Maybe this one will be an easier one for you. What is the coolest moment you consider in your career so far?
The coolest moment? There's been some really good ones. I was telling the story just the other day. I think it's getting to play in Sun Records,
Which is in Memphis.
but this is a close second. I'm gonna name drop here. It's a close second to playing on Mick Jagger's record in the studio with Mick. So that should be number one. But for some reason, playing in Sun Records, in the room where Elvis cut all these great records, where Johnny Cash cut all these great records, with Jerry Lee Lewis playing, with Sam Phillips, who recorded all those Elvis records, behind the glass, was probably one of the coolest moments. I just can't see that moment being repeated with this icon of rock and roll.
Wow.
And him looking over, as we were playing, a whole lot of shaking going on, and giving me the nod, like the classic, all musicians know the nod of like, you take the solo, from Jerry Lee Lewis. And then him to come up, like, compliment me afterwards,
That's a lot.
He said, I like that beat you're laying on guitar, man. I like that beat you lay that in. So you like that beat? He likes my beat.
That's
Jerry
awesome.
Lee likes my beat.
What about this one?
Sounds weird.
If you weren't a musician, what would you be doing today?
Well, that's a good one. Probably cooking, because I like the culinary arts. Yeah, it's just something that I gravitate to. If there's anything that I do in my spare time that I sort of, think about creatively, just because I'm just a creative person. So it would be that. I mean, I love architecture, but it's way too complicated for me to probably ever spend a lot of time trying to digest. So yeah, probably cooking, man, like reading, reading magazines, like
Bon
Appetit.
You've got the last name for it.
I know, man.
Like
It's like it manifested. It really did. Yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah, probably something in the culinary arts.
Last question I have for you here, Kyle. If you had to rewind the clock 10 years, what personal advice would you give yourself?
I mean, probably something that, I kind of picked up from the 4 Agreements, if you're familiar with that book, which is, I recommend everybody read it, to not take things personally, or personally at all. A lot of things that happen in your life. People may say things to you, it might kind of divert you off your path. And, I think, as humans, like we can be pretty sensitive. And so it could be as simple as somebody just like flipping you off in traffic, or, or the way you handle rejection. I just, the younger me, I just wouldn't take things as personally. If people didn't like my song, if they didn't like the way I played guitar, if they didn't think I could sing, whatever, that's more about them, and maybe their own inadequacies or their if hang-ups than my own,
Yeah.
Because it can be damaging. I think a lot of people carry that kind of stuff. If they take people's words too personally.
That's great. It's a good lesson.
Yeah.
Kyle, thank you so much for sitting down, buddy.
Thanks, Anthony.
I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you on another episode of Email on Tap.